Five.
Sorry.
5 London time.
Thank you.
And let's just do a brief introduction. I think we have a lot of people, a lot of things to cover tonight. So I may rearrange this agenda a bit, but let's just go around the room. I'm Elaine Hill, co-chair for Old Historic Zone Advisory Board.
Chris Jackson, the co-chair.
Mike Bell, member of the gang.
I'm Mary Lou Medall, board member.
Briggs Clinko, board member. Yay, she's done today.
Congratulations. Jake Beats, board member.
You guys.
Julia, you can see.
Oh,
Neighborhood Association. Yeah.
Danny, echo neighbor, and Tucson Historic Preservation Foundation.
And then online, Colleen and Barry. You want to introduce yourselves?
Yes, Colleen and Barry here. Thank you.
Donnie Russell.
Yeah, I'm Donnie Russell. I'm a project manager with City of Tucson Parks and Recreation Department.
Rebecca.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Field. I'm a landscape architect with Kimley Horn, working with the City of Tucson Parks and Recreation Department on the Fort Lowell Pony Field project.
Jill. Jill, you're on mute.
Oh, hi. My name is Jill Heater. I'm the property owner of 5354 and 5360 East Fort Lowell Road.
Wyatt.
Wyatt Berger, lead planner with Planning and Development Services.
Paul Reamer.
Hi, I'm Paul Reimer, architect working with Jill and Aaron Heater on their property.
Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I work with Paul.
Carol.
Hi, Carol Maywood. I'm a member of the board.
Michael.
I am Michael Taku. I'm a planner in the Historic Preservation Office.
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do, if there's no objection, is rearrange the agenda a bit. I want to move the approval of minutes of the last 2 meetings to the end, so that anybody who's here not for one of the cases can sign out if they want to. And then, unless there's an objection, I'd also like to move item B, which is the 2900 North Craycroft case, before the other case, so that again they can go ahead and present their case, and then they can move it if they want to. And then just a reference on the call to the audience. For the most part, if you're not a member of the board and you have something to say, would you raise your hand and be acknowledged to speak, instead of us waiting until the end of that case, or do the call to the audience. Okay, so is everyone agreeable to that? Anybody disagree?
Do you have an did you want to keep 3 where it is? So your review process is.
Do that cases.
Okay. No, I'm just wanted to make sure.
Okay. And that's mostly just out of courtesy.
Jody.
Oh, nice to meet you, actually.
So let's go ahead and start the review on SD 0923 0012 102. That's 2900 North Craycroft.
All right. Well, thank you all. If it's okay, I'd like to go ahead and share my screen so we can talk a little bit about the project. Am I allowed to do that, or should I just speak to the project?
No, I just made you co-host, so you should be good.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. Hopefully you're able to see my screen. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present the improvements that we are making to the Pony League field that exists at Fort Lowell Park. Talking through the scope of this project, what we will be doing is we'll be renovating the existing Pony League field that exists at the southwest corner of Fort Lowell Park. It's on the northeast leg of the intersection between Craycroft and Glen. We will be replacing the existing chain link fencing with new chain link fencing that's on this field. We'll be installing new sports field lights, replacing the existing dugouts that have fallen into disrepair, renewing the turf that's on the field, and then upgrading all of the irrigation that's within the current Little League field. We'll also be removing portions of unused turf next to some of the streets, and I'll show you the site plan here in just a moment. And then we'll be adding some native trees. I will note that we did take this plan before the landscape subcommittee for discussion, and one of the items that we heard was that we really wanted to include native trees as part of this project. So that's what we've done as part of this plan. We are also including some sidewalk modifications and circulation improvements just to make the access to the park easier for guests. And we won't be having any impacts to any of the existing trees on the site. So again, this is where we're located. As you can see in this aerial photo, there is an existing field in place. We're going to be putting the field back with the same orientation, but just upgrading the facilities to match the quality that you would expect from a city parks facility. Moving into the site plan, this is what we will be demolishing as part of this process. Shown on the left is a picture of the existing dugouts, which will be removed as part of this project. We'll also be removing the existing field fencing, as you can see in the sketch here, and then we'll be removing a small piece of concrete that is against the backstop to, again, improve circulation and improve access to the new facilities that we're providing. The existing restrooms will remain in place. All the existing parking will remain. Existing lights that are just north of Glen Street, there's three of those that will be remaining in place, along with the existing fence that runs along Glen Street. Shown in gray, the circles there, those are all the existing trees that are in the project area. And again, we won't be having any impacts to those trees. The bleachers that currently exist will be salvaged and they'll be relocated as part of this project. So looking at the site plan, this is the proposed improvement plan. Again, the fencing is going back roughly in the same location to where it is today, just an improved quality of fencing. We'll be adding 2 new dugouts. We'll be adding the salvage bleachers into one location, and then a new set of bleachers that will match the existing set of bleachers so that we have some increased seating capacity for the project. There are portions of new concrete that we'll be adding. So there's a little bit of a darker hatch if you're able to see where my cursor is on the plan, where we're adding a little bit more concrete, again, to improve circulation and maintain ADA access to these new facilities. And then shown along San Francisco Boulevard are the reductions that we're making to some of the turf in the areas. We're adding in some native trees along with water harvesting basins to the locations along the street frontages. We're doing the same thing along Glen Street as well. Cutting back some of the existing turf and then adding a nice screen of native vegetation. And I will mention that the density of the plantings along Glen was a direct reflection of comments that we did receive from the Historic Landscape Subcommittee in the intent of really creating that natural vegetation screen along Glen Street. So the species that we're using desert willow, Arizona ash, velvet mesquite, netleaf hackberry, Arizona rosewood as part of this. And again, the existing trees will be staying in place. As far as some of the details, the site lights that we'll be incorporating are fairly standard to what you would expect for a ball field. They will match the existing color of the lights that are within the park. They will be a silver color. The dugouts themselves, here's a detail that we're showing. They will have chain link fencing wrapped around them with a steel roof cover that we're calling to be a brown color just to be a little bit more reflective of the natural environment. We're also including the bleachers. Again, one new set of bleachers. This matches the existing condition of the one that we're salvaging. And then we're also including water harvesting basins in the turf areas that we are now removing, and we're creating a more sustainable landscape. That is a quick summary of our project. I'll go ahead and open it up to questions if that's appropriate at this time, and see what feedback the group has for us.
Can I go ahead, Jody? Did you?
No, I was just going to point out there was a comment from Pauline on there.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone saw it.
You
Right?
saw Colleen's comment. Mm-hmm. I wondered about the height of the chain link fence that is on the Craycroft side. So I guess that's the west side of this project.
Are you referring to this fence that's running along the back?
Is that where the fence will go? It's no longer going to be a squared, like to follow the parking lot and the street side?
That's correct. So this fence that exists right now along the parking will be removed as part of this project. The new fence will be located right around the field.
And how high will that new fence be?
I believe that new fence is only about 4 feet tall.
I know you're gonna laugh. I've always worried about that low fence at that point because it is low and it is on the busiest street. And I'm sure that somebody's done the studies and I don't know, but I've just worried that 4 feet, like you've thrown a ball and that ball's going over and the kid's running into the street because the fence is only 4 feet because he can climb over it. And I just wondered what the considerations were for that.
Sure. I'm not sure if you were able to see the screen share to a different PDF document. This is our full set of plans. So I did want to open up this because I'm not sure that I'm telling you correctly. I just want to verify it's 6 feet tall, a little bit taller.
I'm more comfortable with that. Are you? Yeah, okay. Yeah. We're happier with that. Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to check. I couldn't remember off the top of my head, but this is our fencing plan. It is in our plan set that was submitted as part of the package, and so it is a 6 foot tall fence. So all the fence heights are detailed here along the field.
And that is chain link and no fancy decorations or anything on the fence.
That's correct. It is chain link fencing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'd like to ask a question to Ryan about the area just to the direction around the south of the new fence, that turf area there. So that's just intended to be like spectators and right?
It's open park space, similar to what it is today. So that's being maintained in the same condition that it is. It's just open lawn.
Is there any reason not to put trees in it?
There was a discussion on that. We initially did have trees. It was more of a concern from, possible use if there was going to be spectators or any other kind of event or use happening in that area. The thoughts were that we would keep the trees on the perimeter to allow more flexibility in that open space.
I have walked that area that you're talking about, and it's really squishy. And I've always worried that it's always wet, and I don't know if it is septic. I don't know if it's just water draining, just sitting, but it's squishy, and everything else could be dry and rock solid. But that area is squishy. Just something to.
And then there's an intended picnic table right at the bottom of that screen, right?
Correct.
Just a table, or is it a ramada?
It's not a ramada. It's a concrete pad with a picnic table.
So we might put a couple of trees around it. So people will use it. At least just right there. So if it provides shade, that's my only comment.
Okay, I want to just enter into the record that we had one of our neighbors comment that the Arizona rosewood tree is not a tree native to the historic Fort Lowell district. It is an Arizona native tree, but it is not native to the historic district. I'm going to guess that the things that line the parade ground are they native to the historic district? To the cottonwoods. They are native. So maybe we want to stay true to the historic district and plant something other than a rosewood tree.
Sure,
Are you using the rosewood as a head or a tree?
We're using it as a small tree. They're shown right here along Glen Street. What we heard from the Historic Landscape Subcommittee was that the two existing trees that are here, those are really large pine trees. That those are, you know, have a historic character to them, but the discussion was that we wouldn't be planting new high water use vegetation back into this space. So in a nod to the denser non-native vegetation that once fronted this street as part of the park improvements, we were asked to create a pretty dense vegetative screen there, and that's where the rosewood came in as a, you know, it's a tree, but it's a very shrubby tree, and it creates part of that greener look that may have been more in character with some of the non-natives that once were used in the area as part of the park. So that was the intent behind the density that we're showing here on the south side.
I have a comment. Not about the trees, but the lights. Could you show us the distribution of the field lights and which direction their light is going to go? Yeah.
I sure can. And just to make sure you're able to see this new page that I have pulled up, correct? With more of a, yes. Okay. So these are the field lights. This is because of the scale of the construction plans, we have it broken out into two pages, but this is the north half of the field. Again, this is home plate. Here's the San Francisco Boulevard and the restroom. So we have lights here, here, here. There's one along the outfield fencing. And then as I move to the next sheet, there's another light here and another light here. They're all facing inward towards the field. And then these three lights down here are the existing lights that will be remaining in place.
How far does that light go into the surrounding areas? Is it pretty much focused on the field?
It is focused on the field. We do have photometrics as part of this plan set. Musco is the lighting manufacturer, and Musco has some very, very high quality lighting. So you can see in some of these images where the shadow, the light is cast exactly where it needs to go. And then the immediate vicinity is dark, similar to this image as well. And so we've done the photometric analysis to show kind of what the light levels are going to be and the kind of some of the spillover. I can zoom in here. But we're at a really low level of spillover in these areas at the park, and it really doesn't extend beyond that parking lot limit.
So the new lights, the existing lights, do the existing lights, do they spill more, or the old lights?
The old lights spill more. So we're upgrading to the latest technology of lights, which have a much better cutoff than the current field lights that are out there.
There's a sidewalk that showed up. It wasn't on the other plan. down to south end?
Yes, this was an earlier iteration when we had Musco do our photometrics. This was an earlier version. It doesn't impact their light levels, but this was an original configuration. And then again, based on the feedback from the landscape subcommittee, we were asked to formalize that a little bit with that denser vegetation screen. So that's definitely a change that occurred during the course of the project.
Is that the water harvesting?
No.
Anybody else have concerns or questions?
Well, I did have one question. The water harvesting on the south end of the park, the master plan shows parking in that area. Is there room? Or are you ever going to do that kind of parking? It's probably a good idea. It's on Blint, on the master plan.
Yes, I am familiar with the master plan. I was part of the team that worked on that back in 2008 or so. So definitely do recall some thoughts there about including additional parking. For the purposes of this project and what was within the budget that the parks is spending on improving this field, the intent was to really leave the existing conditions as much in place as possible. If there's future improvements, we're creating water harvesting features in some areas down here for native landscaping. I think they'd have to relook at that area if ever we do want to increase the parking. But there may be other opportunities since quite a bit of time has passed since that master plan to look at possibly less intrusive solutions to how we might increase parking in these locations, if that makes sense.
Good.
Does anyone want to discuss any conditions for this case? Rosewood, it's okay.
Anybody else care about Rosewood?
I like it.
You like it? Anybody else care that it's out of the historic district?
I think it's like to try to match the historic district.
My motion would be to include changing rosewood out to another species that is specifically located in the historic district. And I don't know that it has to be the velvet mesquite. I don't know what it has to be, but I think we've got a variety and we've got the information. So, but that would be my only. Yeah, we have and I bet Rebecca, you have the list of things that are native to Fort Lowell that we've got. It's one of the Spicer books.
I do. Yes, I do. I have that. So I can look at that without a doubt and see what might fit the bill for the placement here along that edge.
So may one suggesting Palo Verde or something, someone else said cat claw, but cat claw is probably not
Texas Mountain Laurel, it doesn't grow here either.
Do you have an Arizona laurel?
Palo Verde or cat claw acacia.
Or creosote.
Creosote, yeah.
Creosote would
the
be
ultimate
nice.
neighborhood bush.
Yeah, creosote would be really nice.
Okay, so that's the only comment I have heard that would be in a motion. So does someone like to make a motion?
A motion that we approve this with a change, with the change from the Arizona rosewood to something that is native to the Fort Lowell Historic District.
I'll second that.
Carol's your second. Did you want them to just pick it? You don't want to be prescriptive?
Those options that were provided.
few moments.
Could you repeat that?
The
Carol.
the options that were provided in the little text message, the cat claw, the Palo Verde, and someone mentioned the Chris.
I mean, could we hear from Rebecca? I don't know if this is the right time to ask a question after the motion for the second, but if it is,
it is the exact time to ask that.
So I guess I'd like to hear from Rebecca. Were any of those other species considered? I guess another way of asking that, why was the California rosewood selected perhaps from other species that were considered?
Part of it was due to the size. I think in looking at it, the list that we've talked about just now, the cat claw or creosote would better meet the intent of a smaller kind of tree or large shrub tucked into the location that we were showing it on the plan. We were looking for something really green to reflect some of the, there's the big pine trees right next to where these plants are going. So something that would tie into that character a little bit and kind of help that transition between the more native materials and then the pine trees that exist along this stretch. The blue Palo Verde is one that's in flux right now. There has been a moratorium on that tree within the city of Tucson that has been lifted, but we're still really trying to understand the implications of putting that back on sites with the disease that has been affecting blue Palo Verdes throughout the city. So that would be one that I would be concerned to include. I think the cat claw, though, could serve the function pretty well. It has the thorns. It is going to be right next to a sidewalk. That would be maybe a consideration. The creosote is a lot smaller than what we were intending, but I wouldn't be opposed to using that either. So
and it doesn't have thorns. The creosote is friendly.
Correct. And then you're right. We have hackberry. Well, we have a netleaf hackberry on the plan. Again, trying to get a little bit greener, given that it's a park space, but we could look at a hackberry as well. I wouldn't be opposed to a creosote. I don't think that area necessarily needs a little tree tucked in there. I think if you all would be in favor of like a creosote, that may be the best approach, just to not have thorns next to a walking area, and then just to maintain that kind of native feel with a little bit of screening.
Okay. You want to clarify your motion, or you want to specify? No. Okay.
There's also been a comment about desert hackberry and acacia.
Yeah, she talked about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, desert hackberry is another good one. It is pretty spiny. So that would be just another consideration there. Just trying to be mindful of that. Of course, we have the mesquites. They all have thorns. It's part of living in the desert, but where we can try to keep it away, we do.
Okay, so the motion's made, like seconded. Let's start. Chris.
In favor.
Mike.
Aye.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Elaine, aye. So 6-0. 6 all in favor. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
7 in
There's 7
favor.
now.
There's 7 of you.
Carol, make 7.
Exclusive group in the city of Tucson.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on.
Before we move on, who's call-in user 1? Who's phoning in?
Am I speaking?
Yes. Who are you?
It's John Burr. I was just curious, so I was trying to join by Zoom, but all the links don't work. I emailed Wyatt, you, Jody, and Elaine.
Oh, you know what? I will send that link to you now. I don't know what happened.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry. I just wanted to catch that person.
Yeah, good idea.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your time.
Well, hang on
Yes.
one second. I'm quite ready yet. Everybody not quick.
That was Donnie from this last item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Donnie. Donnie, you can go. Donnie's gone.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your feedback.
I think what I want to do with this is catch everybody up to what happened since the last time we heard his face. Or Jody, do you want to catch him up and I will fill in?
Sure.
Okay.
So you know that you recommended approval with conditions. It went to PRS. It took a little bit to get to PRS because of scheduling. We had other projects that we needed to get on the agenda that came before. PRS heard it at their last meeting. There were a number of comments that came through to PRS from Damien. There was a comment that came from Colleen Sackheim that came after your meeting, and Elaine forwarded it to me, so I forwarded that on. And Elaine also provided a comment. Those were noted and sent out to the plans review subcommittee members. They actually didn't look at the proposed revisions, but there were revisions by the property owner. And they, because of the number of comments and concerns about it, decided to remand it back to, they recommended to remand it back to Fort Lowell. So it's now back in your camp, with the idea that if you make a recommendation today, then on Thursday, it will go back to PRS, and they will hear it there in an effort to kind of move the project along. There was, PRS had asked that staff kind of go through because there were a number of comments and concerns about stuff. So before the meeting, I had sent out an email to you with the comments kind of going through as a summary of concerns that Damien had and staff responses.
Did anyone have a chance to read it?
No.
I can't see anything.
Hey, Jody.
Yes.
I'm not sure what you necessarily had planned, and definitely tell me if I'm jumping out of order. But I do have kind of a letter I would like to read to everybody, as well as kind of a PowerPoint presentation that walks through where we started and where we're at currently. And then at that point, I could have Paul present what his most recent updates based on some of the feedback and conversations that I've had. Does that sound okay, or what do you think?
At this point, the chair has it. So when she's working her way through everything, and when she's ready for you to present, she will let you know.
Okay.
So let's open your document is 4 pages, so 3.5 pages.
Sorry, I was getting there.
Yeah. I didn't get it. I already left the house by the time this.
Oh.
So I haven't had a chance to look. Did anyone have a chance to look at it?
Nope.
So I can go through it really quickly if you want me to. The first part of it is just kind of giving you the information about 5354 and, oh, you know what? Sorry. Let me share my screen because that would be super helpful for everybody, wouldn't it? Okay. So the first part is kind of giving you the rundown on the property, the 5354 and 5360, what's there and what's being proposed, the reviews that happened when you did your review, and the recommendations and the conditions that you had. And then when it went to, so it initially went to the plans review subcommittee on April 27th, and they asked them to revise it in accordance with the recommendations that Fort Lowell had. And then also asked SHPO to take a look at it. And then they continued it and it went back to Plans Review Subcommittee on the 14th. And that's where they remanded it back to you. So then it kind of has the concern, and then it has Damien's concerns. And then we looked at the relevant code sections. So Damien was concerned about the block wall blocking the visibility of 5354 East Fort Lowell. Noting that the current wall that's out there, the current fence, the 6-foot wood fence, is a code violation. I didn't have an opportunity to clarify if that was something that was reported to code or if what was going on with that. And then noting that it should be not taller than 4 feet. He noted that the code criteria, he looked at the technical standards manual, and in his letter, he was noting the supplemental criteria. The supplemental criteria is something that is not a required thing. If you look, it actually says may be considered in the review process, unlike the other items. I also note that I underlined that for emphasis. And then this is the actual text of the technical standards manual. So this is the beginning of these 4 items. It's utilities, fences, paint, and landscaping all fall under this supplemental criteria. And this is the actual text right here of the 4.3 for closures.
So to me, oh, okay.
Okay. So then we have the staff response here, noting basically what I did, that those are supplemental criteria for review. Color, landscaping, enclosures, and utilities are not required items as opposed to development criteria listed in 9-02.3.0. And then it's also in the design guidelines for Fort Lowell. This is the exact text that it has. Fences, walls, or other physical features used to enclose open space to provide privacy must be compatible with the architectural style of the subject structure and the historic character of the development zone, generally adobe, stone, stucco, masonry, actio, and wrought iron acceptable. There's no discussion of height in that from your design guidelines. And then there was a comment from Damien's comments about, how it's lined up with the other districts. But when you look at the way that the other historic preservation zones are set up, like West University and Armory Park, they are house. They have like 50-foot wide, 100-foot deep. They're straight up just going across. So this is a different setup in Fort Lowell where you have big lots, the houses and the setbacks vary from different things. So Fort Lowell, the point being, it's a different setup than the other HPZs. There are houses that we noted, 5440 East Fort Lowell. It's a non-contributor. It's right next door. It was constructed in 97, 98 or so. It has a 6-foot wall in front of it. 5309 East Fort Lowell, it's listed as contributing historic, has a solid 6-foot fence set back from the right of way, blocks view of the house. Damien states that the wall predates the HPZ. When I was looking on historic aerials, I couldn't see it prior to 1984. 1984 is when I saw it pop up.
I can clarify this too.
And then 5349 East Fort Lowell is individually designated property on the National Register, has a solid wall that appears to be over 5 feet, setback from the right of way. The property is directly across the street from this subject property. As an open gate is currently receiving the property tax protection. Damien is correct. It was a code violation. It appears that it actually, like most things, even though it's a code violation, it still comes back for review. And so it came back for the review and it was ultimately approved. And then I'm noting that it still has a 6-foot wall. This current property subject wall has a 6-foot wall. In its current configuration from the right of way, you can't see the property unless you enter onto the property. And then that's reiterating that previous one about the design guidelines. There was also a comment was brought up about parking is proposed to be located in front of the proposed wall. The parking was not part of this. It was the fence. Based on what I was able to see, parking's generally been in the same location for decades. It is also was noted that, you know, per the technical standards manual, parking should be at the rear of the property. But again, in Armory Park, you know, you don't have driveways that from the front, they park in the rear. But this house actually sits really far back towards the back property line. So parking in the rear isn't an option for them. And so the question was, how can this be moved forward? Staff shouldn't have moved forward, but based on the information that we had, we felt that it was a complete application and we moved it forward for review. But that's generally what it says, but you all have this. And it was just the summary, trying to summarize comments that were put together and our point of view and what we saw.
Okay, so I want to supplement that to go back to the walls that are already existing. I did do an analysis back of the minutes of Fort Lowell Historic Advisory Board, and there's a big gap in them between maybe 77 and 87. No. And all the ones before 95 are handwritten, so this took me days. But what I found was the ones that were cited in Jody's information is that, in summary, there are two 6-foot walls that are results of zoning violations. 5349, which is the one that's across the street from this side. I know it's at the corner of Cuyahoga. We call it the Shakes House. And that was a zoning violation that went on for years, from the early 80s until the 90s. And ultimately, they, I don't know what the options were because I couldn't find those minutes, but the options I think were to tear it down or accept it.
I think he sold them. I think he started selling the houses.
So that was one, was a zoning violation, ultimately accepted. A subsequent owner put in a big gate, a double gate, so that the house could be seen, so that she could get her tax reclassification. The other one that was noticed was 2932 North Beverly. That's not a Fort Lowell address, it's a Beverly address. That wall was also a zoning violation that had to do with building materials in the yard. There were complaints about it for years. There was a zoning violation filed. Ultimately, the city went back to the owner and said, put up a wall. And the Fort Lowell Historic District Board had to accept that. It's supposed to be less than a 6-foot wall, but again, it's a perimeter wall. It's a side yard wall. You see the house from the Beverly address. There were 2 4-foot walls built with approval, with unanimous approval. 5328 East Fort Lowell, 2929 Beverly. Not Beverly. And those are the Harrington House, the little white house. And 2920 is in the middle of the block of Beverly. It was pardon? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. And then 2 5 or 6 foot walls preceded the creation of the historic zone, and one of them is my house, 5309. And like Jody said, I can't find any record of it ever being addressed by the historic zone. But historically, there are pictures of a wooden fence in front of it. So the wooden fence, I think it was in 1983 when there were floods and the house flooded.
And which property are you?
The 5309, it was right at the intersection of Beverly and Fort Lowell. And the other one is 5669, which is on the National Register for its architecture, for its archaeology. It's part of the fort footprint. And it was built with a 5-foot wall in 1970. The city site shows that as non-contributing or non-historic, contributing non-historic, sorry. There's one 5-foot fence installed. That's the one we're talking about, 5354, 5360. By history, and I have some pictures. We went back and looked at old pictures and inventories, and that went up sometime after probably 2000. I don't know, sometime between 2005 and 2018. And before then, and Jill, I'm sorry you can't see the pictures. I'd be happy to email them to you. But this is a sequence of pictures of the front house and the back house from 1977, 1990, 2005, 2023. And the fence was originally constructed to run perpendicular to the front house towards the back using saguaro rails and using a low wooden slat fence. That was replaced at some point with a taller but variable slat fence, and that was replaced at some point with this 5-foot wooden fence, continuous wooden fence that's there right now. The other point I wanted to make about this that has been skipped is that the lane that runs next to this house is an easement for properties. It's not an alley. It's a deeded easement for the properties that are abutting it, including the Heater property. So anyone can use that for access, and that the existing fence that's there has a gap at the corner of the fence. It's like 50 feet of fence and 10 or 15 feet of wire fence that you can see through in the corners. And then down the lane that runs, the fence that runs south along the lane is actually over to you for that halfway. So you can see through it up to your fence. You can see through it from the right. Maybe not when you're driving by, but if you're on the lane or if you're on the path, the walking path, you look down and you see the fence. So you see that, you see through to the path. And I think they did that intentionally. I think that either Joe McClure or Carol Parker did that intentionally. There's no record that I found of the Fort Lowell Advisory Board recommending construction of a 6-foot front yard fence. We recommended side yard fences of all heights, 4 foot, 5 foot, 6 foot, in new residential construction, in side yards, or on contributing non-historic properties or in subdivisions. And some of the subdivisions, like Adobe South Bosque, have fences. They all have, walls in front of their front doors. They've got density that was approved by historic, but they're not historic. So they will, and they'll never be historic. One is not alive, anyway. One is pretty much none of us are alive. So that's my information, and we also resubmitted the historic inventory forms in June, I believe, to SHPO, and they were accepted. And SHPO's decision had to do with the status of the rear house only. So there was some communication issue about that, but SHPO didn't consider the property contributing. The front property is still contributing to National Register and the historic zone. The back property is contributing to the historic zone. So questions, if I can answer any questions, and then Bill can go some more. That was a summary. That was a summary.
Summarize your summary. So let me see if I can. You're saying that the fence along Fort Lowell was never approved or reviewed by the board.
Which fence? The wooden fence?
Yeah.
Right, correct.
And that the ones running south were reviewed on occasion. Is that correct?
The ones running to the south are not. You're talking about the OPT fences?
Yeah,
they were not reviewed.
So which fence was not reviewed again?
Did anything been reviewed?
So you said the front?
Historically, one side of this property, the west side of the property,
is that the Camino Ochoa?
Yeah,
on here.
Yeah, had
this
one fencing, and then in about 2018, I think there was OPT fencing put on the west side of the property, historically, there was a low wooden fence kind of between the properties and towards the back of the property. So so then we should just talk about the current proposal. Okay, is it clear? I know it's clear as mud. It takes a long.
No, I can imagine it'll work.
It's convoluted.
You want Jill to present?
Yeah, so Jill and Paul, if you want to go ahead and do your presentation.
Okay. So first bear with me. I just wanted to like read you guys a letter just because I feel like we've all kind of been on this long journey together. And I know that some of you may not know me very well in person yet. Some of you I'm just getting to know. So I just kind of wanted to reset something really quick with a letter to you guys, and then I'll go into a PowerPoint that I won't go into much detail because we've highlighted some of the things already, and then I'll have Paul present with his newest recommendations, which I think will kind of maybe help answer some of the concerns that you guys have. Okay, so I wanted to start off with a couple paragraphs reading from a letter that I wrote in November of 2019 to Carol Parker. A lot of you guys probably remember she was the preceding owner of our property. So when we were working on an offer, here's a part of what that letter said. We wanted something authentic and a little wild, something so rustically beautiful that it couldn't be duplicated. When we pulled onto East Fort Lowell Road, we already knew that we were exactly where we'd want to be. Driving on that road is like stepping back in time with the perfectly preserved adobe homes, large open lots that make you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, even though you're in the center of the city. I've been tracking your property for over a year now, hoping it would still be available when we had the opportunity to visit Tucson, and fortunately for us, it was. It was such an enchanting home, and when I walk through the property, I can see the dinner parties we can host in the back patio with the fireplace, and our friends and family enjoying relaxing stays in the guest house. I can see Aaron and I, my husband, creating a beautiful space for us without taking away any of the thoughtful character it already possesses. We hadn't planned to make an offer on the home so soon, but the very next day after seeing the home, we reached out to our realtor to tell her we were ready to make an offer. We are completely certain that this is the right home for us, and although surely it will be a labor of love at times, we are ready to accept the challenges we may face to call this home ours. So I wanted to read that to you guys because I think we're all a lot more similar than we may think. I think we were all drawn to this neighborhood for similar reasons, just as our eclectic predecessors were. I want to remind everybody that people aren't always what they seem or what you may hear from others. I totally understand that this is a special property. I am also aware that this property sat on the market for over 2 years, and my husband and I were the only brave ones that were willing to make it ours. As you guys know, it's been about a 9, almost 10-month process since we started our first submission for this enclosure. It's been a lot of tears, a lot of dollars spent trying to figure out this process. But I really want you guys to know, like, we're not flippers. We're not rich. We're not trying to like turn this house over. I'm just a normal person who's always been obsessed with old architecture. And I'm lucky enough to have a husband that believes in my crazy dreams. I don't believe that we're necessarily asking for anything out of the character of the neighborhood, which we kind of just talked about, and I'll highlight in a little bit shortly. But I do want to remind everybody, we don't have a private backyard space. We only have that center courtyard between our 2 homes. So we're just asking for some reasonable privacy and security for day-to-day living, as this is our only yard. Colleen Sackheim and Barry Spicer wrote a beautiful letter for public comments in the last meeting. Although I might not align 100% with everything that was said, they did say a lot of words about community, collaboration, thoughtful consideration, empathy, neighbor helping neighbor. which I really, really liked. And I have had the opportunity to talk with several of the neighbors since the last meeting on 9/14. I wish I would have done it sooner. Although design-wise, it might not be exactly what everybody, wants. I know there's a lot of ideas, a lot of opinions here. But I do hope that you see that we've made some significant changes to the plan since February that allow much more visibility that there currently is today, and also align with the neighborhood guidelines that we've received. And I just want you guys all to know, we do want to be a part of this community and hope to have this home for the rest of our life and be part of the future of this neighborhood. So I'll get out of the mushy stuff and let me just present a couple slides really quick, if I may. Okay, so just to provide a visual to some of those things that Jody had pointed out in some of the things that she had said. So this was the initial plans that we submitted. This is back in February. That was the initial gate that we that I have highlighted with a blue arrow. There was initially this kind of other little nicho and pathway where we previously had a different idea that we've since thrown out the door. So that was kind of the initial plan that we had previously presented. From this meeting, although there was kind of a lot of questions and confusion, it's definitely like a confusing property and situation. Ultimately, what was asked of us at that time was that the wall height and location along the west side of the property to provide more variation there. They did approve the proposed gate as presented at the time, and allowed the wall to be constructed in front of the existing west fence. For those of you who are kind of playing catch up, we were, thinking about moving it up a little bit. I think in that initial meeting, I had said 10 feet, and that's incorrect. It's really only about 4 to 5 feet. That motion was passed, and then it did move on to TPCHC. From that meeting, they would like to ask us to do more visibility from the front north side. They also wanted to confirm with SHPO that if we were to put up a 6-foot wall, that it would not cause the back property 5354 to lose its listing status. So just real quick, we did confirm with SHPO that that wouldn't include. I know that we've kind of already talked about that to death, and I definitely recognize that there is significance to the back house. So from there, these are the images that we had intended to present on 9/14 to provide some visibility from that north wall internally. So on the gate, we provided some visibility there, as well as a little bit of visibility that are closer to 5360. You'll see there's like a little brown fence with some openings there. Another thing that I want to highlight that doesn't show in this picture is that was kind of what was asked from us in these other meetings, is that up here in the northwest corner, Paul, our architect, who you'll hear from soon, he had previously put kind of like a little curve right here so that it curves around the existing mesquite trees in that front northwest corner. And then something that you guys didn't see visually is that on the west side, Paul had kind of constructed the setback as part of the wall, and then a couple of openings here on the side. This, we've already kind of talked about. A lot of these homes were just highlighted. I just kind of wanted to place a visual of, some of the walls that are currently located within the HPZ, varying heights, varying situations. As we've already talked about, some of these are contributing historic, contributing non-historic, non-contributing non-historic. So there is a wide variety, but walls do exist within the neighborhood. These are the initial guidelines that we had looked at. One thing that I do want to make sure you guys know about that we haven't talked about just yet is that we did place a pool in our yard. It hasn't been able to be completed because we're waiting to get approval on an enclosure and complete that project in order for us to actually fill the pool with water. But the city of Tucson requires a 5-foot wall or fence or other barrier in order to make it a code compliant pool. The wall barrier cannot have openings that are bigger than a spherical object 4 inches in diameter to pass. One other thing I just want to note too is that any gates or things that we construct, they have to be self-closing and self-latching. So that's why sometimes instead of what I would love to do is maybe use something that's antique in our existing, it is better to construct a compliant door, from scratch rather than trying to take something old and antique. This is really silly in the pictures. I totally get that. But I know that one of the things that has come up or might come up is the idea around putting a pool fence directly around the pool. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is actually the 5360. This is what I consider like the front house. The pool is actually located right here in between the 2 homes. If we put a fence that's directly around it, you're going to block this beautiful part of the back house right here from parts of the yard that would block the nicho over here. And you're really going to obstruct this sight line that really draws the attention all the way through to the yard from the pool to this back patio. So that's really why we're pushing for an enclosure that would kind of encircle, most of the entirety of the property. Real quick, before I move on to Paul, I just want to try and illustrate something here. I know this isn't a complete picture, but I think something that Paul will present to you will definitely help, Colleen and Barry, some of your concerns about what currently exists today and animals and wildlife getting through. But I just want to make sure everybody understands, we don't plan to build a wall back here. The wall, I would intend to stop right here. And then I would put like a wrought iron fencing that connects the wall to right here. And then we would leave all of the kind of like old wood. There's a little bit of ocotillo over here. There's more old wood. There's like this really cool old like adobe nicho back here. All of that would stay exactly the same from a visibility standpoint, from just how it looks right now. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. But I will actually pass this over now to Paul so you can show what we've talked about since our last meeting in 9/14. Thank you, guys. Paul, do we have you still? Okay, good. Paul, if you are talking, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. Appreciate it. So since the last meeting we had with Pima County, Tucson, City of Tucson, we have revisited all these issues and comments, and we've made further revisions that we would like to put before everybody. And I realize maybe it's just me on my laptop, but this is pretty small. So I would like to zoom in if I can.
We're looking at a plan that was presented on 9/14. Is this a different plan?
Yeah, we just submitted this in the last day or two. I just uploaded it to the historic review part of the submission, not the City of Tucson permit one.
Yeah, so that's not really a good idea, Paul. Because we had already set you up with this plan. So Elaine printed out the previous one.
All right.
So yeah, they don't have this, and they usually review that. We post everything as far in advance as we can so they can review it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still go through the plans, but they're gonna likely have a lot more questions.
they're pretty simple changes, I feel like.
I think that we're responding to people's comments, so I think that they probably would be
happy. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's worth I think it's worth a shot.
Maybe also point out what's different from what was you previous, not from the February, but from the 14th that you had.
Sure. Will do. So we'll just start with the site plan here. The location of the gate.
Paul, hold on.
I'm sorry again, but the date we put out the dates over on the right side. So the plan that they have in front of them is from 7/25.
7/28.
7/28.
And this is a 9/25.
Right. Yeah.
Today's the 26th.
Yep.
So yeah, go ahead.
So the walls are generally in the same place, and the gate is in the same place as it was. The height of the wall has been reduced from 6 feet to 5 feet in most locations, except right at the gate itself. The gate itself remains 6 feet, and the wall rises, as you'll see in the elevation. The wall rises to meet that. Otherwise, it's all been dropped a foot. And so this screen over here is now 5 feet. This screen over here has been dropped to 3'8", as you can see there. We have taken out sections of solid wall as well. Jill was just talking about this curved section, which we have taken out as a solid wall. It's now being proposed as wrought iron. Then there's a solid section right here, the 32 feet. And then the next 32 feet is wrought iron again. So you have full visual access to the property if you're using the access easement. And then it returns to solid wall for a short bit. I know it shows the solid wall, but it returns to solid wall until it gets past the house, and then it terminates completely. So I just want to show you the elevations. I'll show you one quick rendering. So this is the elevation showing the 6 foot section right at the gate, then dropping to 5. All the wrought iron is also 5, just to meet the pool code. And then I want to show you the west elevation, which this towards the north side. You can see there's a section of wrought iron there, and then the 32-foot section as you move farther to the south. And so the gate design is the same as it was in the July submission, where there's a large section near the top where you can see through it. I'll stop sharing that, and I just have one rendering that I would like to share before getting. So that's what it would look like according to a rendering software. Again, the caveat with this: the renderings do not do historic well. They don't do texture terribly well. So this is just a visual that's about the form of the wall, its height, and what it might look like in very general terms. So with that, maybe it'd be best if I went back to the CAD drawings, and I will stop there. Stop here.
Okay, for me to talk?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you finished, Paul?
Yep, I'm done. I'm done. Thank you.
It's one of the things that is significant, Jill, about what you said has to do, this is Mary Lou, it has to do with the view shed that you're concerned about preserving as you put that pool in and having that open space of viewing. And I think you're right. We are alike in that we are all concerned about the viewing of this home, and only our view is from this exterior and yours is from the interior. And I think that's where this disconnect lives. You're trying to do an awful lot with a really big wall and fence to meet the guidelines for the city. And I know why they have those guidelines for a pool. And so we are, I don't want to say we're at cross purposes, but we are going to have to work, I think, to be able to bring this together. But I do feel like that's the disconnect, and it becomes when I saw that, because in the original plan you didn't talk about a pool or having to have, you know, this big wall beat the guidelines, because we would have all known about your pool guidelines. And so that does become a much bigger issue and concern, remembering that our view is what we see from the exterior and what we want to be able to see of these homes and the historic nature of these homes. I'm a little stymied by this, and so I don't have I'm not even sure I have an opinion on this, because I'm kind of feeling like Jill, like this is really emotional for me, because we've spent so many hours looking at this plan of walls, and we're still, I'm still feeling like we've not come together on it. And
can I set aside the pool issue?
Yeah,
sorry,
I know, but that's
I realize that's what their
design is based on.
But we're not here to. The pool is the pool.
But I do.
Yeah. So please go ahead.
I just, you know, I'm a little confused because I'm just reviewing what the design review requirements are that are specified in A of the. Yes. And it says review and approval of all properties, buildings, sites, and structures within an HPZ is required for all development and improvements, including new construction or improvements that do not require building permits. Proposals are allowed to comply, are reviewed for compliance with section 5.8.9 of the design standards. And a structure is defined as a physical element constructed or erected within a physical location on the ground or attached to another physical element having a fixed location at, below, or above grade. Structures include such elements, but are not limited to buildings, paved areas, walls, fences, posts, and patios. So why would this not be in part of the initial design review to begin with?
It was not. It wasn't.
There seems to be a massive disconnect, and I'll just tell you, as both the neighbor and the Preservation Foundation CEO, there's a real disconnect in the application of these standards when the applicant goes to the city of Tucson and submits their plan. It requires that all site elements be reviewed. And here, an applicant is now in a bind because they began a project because they were told it didn't. We have a preservation officer who takes a permissive approach and provided an entire plan, an entire argument this evening of all of the exceptional reasons and examples of walls, instead of showing us the walls that actually were in question. You have a chair of your board who spent 12 hours going through minutes to actually find the actual facts of the case, and that the cities have to do that. So it's really concerning that, and I'll tell you, I was on the historical commission when we rewrote the code, and we dealt with the walls issue in particular, and we added language about the 4 feet measured from the exterior road and the intent, and that may, for the entire time I was on that commission, was because not all sites have walls, not all sites have landscaping issues. And so these may apply when it's relevant, not it may apply when it's convenient or when you think it may or may not apply. They always will apply in every single case. And now there's this new permissive interpretation, which just seems to be a constant issue with this preservation office. So I just want to put that out there. It's just a concern that this board is being put in this situation in the first place. I don't think it's acceptable. I don't think it's acceptable for this applicant. And I don't think it's acceptable for this board, because it should have all been resolved on day one when that applicant went into the city. And there should have been a conversation with them that this didn't follow the code. And then they should have come back with a revised plan. Instead, it's pitting neighbors against neighbors. And that's not fair to anybody. That's what I say about that.
I want to get back on from Elaine's review. Thank you for your comments. Just thank you for doing that historic research about the intentions of this neighborhood and this preservation zone, and and where that's coming from. And I just would have a major concern with breaking with the precedent of the board. I think that the neighborhood is tried and true. We've shown a strong ability to preserve this part of Tucson, and breaking with precedent around a new construction would be a major concern when we have a working model.
And there were comments in those minutes about, especially about the zoning violations, about we can't allow this, it's going to create a precedent. And then they had to. I mean, they're forced to for this same reason, that there was, you know, discontent, disagreement. Are there any comments about, anybody want to just make a general comment?
I'll make a comment. We've gone through a lot of work to open up the walls, but the wall that needs to be opened up is the very one that you haven't opened up. And in your first solutions, the little niche thing off of the west side of the building made some sense. Now it doesn't make any sense at all. It's a little alleyway to nowhere. And one solution that would work is to lower the front wall to 4 feet and take the gate out and move back to the end of the house and put a 5-foot wrought iron wall back there. That would give you a certain amount of visual protection while also satisfying the swimming pool issues further back. Then the whole thing works fine.
If it were 4 feet, that wouldn't satisfy the pool code. I also respectfully question how wrought iron would provide us privacy in the front.
If you went directly west from the back of the house to meet the curved portion of the new wall, if you took that location for your wall and it was a 5-foot wrought iron wall, it would be wrought iron fence. You have a little piece of wrought iron looking above a 4-foot wall, and it would solve your swimming pool problems. But I guess we're not here to solve problems. But it is possible to do it. It is possible to do that.
So what you're suggesting is a 4-foot wall in the front. If you need a 4-foot wall in the front, if you
show you this,
a 4-foot wall for privacy.
Yeah, this part is a 4-foot wall. This is a 5-foot wall. You've moved the gate back to the back so it has some depth to it. I mean, it would work just fine.
So then the historic house isn't obscured. The National Register District House isn't obscured from the west.
It meets the criteria again.
And then you have you've introduced some privacy with a 4-foot wall. And then you introduced another wrought iron fence behind that for pool purposes. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Point it out again. Sorry, it was lifted up, so I didn't see
Maybe
it.
if you could put it up there. Here's the existing wall. The lower that's 4 feet. You come back here and you put a 5-foot wrought iron fence across here with the gate here, and you make this an opening that gives it a lot of depth and character. But then this is the pool enclosure back here. This is the 4-foot wall that gives you visual access.
So, Paul, so the front wall, if I understand this correctly, that you're showing right now, what Mike is suggesting is that is dropped to 4 feet. Then how far back is that?
I don't have a scale, but it's
the edge of the house.
The back edge. So then at the back edge of the house, the front house, then you would do a 5-foot wrought iron wall, and the gate would be in the wrought iron wall that's back at the corner of the house. Oh, sorry, I wasn't looking. I was looking at his.
Yeah, that one right there. That just continue that wall straight west as a wrought iron fence.
Do you understand what we're explaining?
Is it possible to draw? I mean, there's the annotation tool. Why not draw?
Oh, because I never think to draw on these. That you would draw, and it's not going to be straight. So the green would be the 5-foot wrought iron.
And it could be irregular, just like it could be regular, just like a drawing.
Well, I'm not a straight line drawer on this, so.
But we prefer the regular.
So yeah, so your green, so the green would be the 5-foot wrought iron. This area up here, right here, you would lower that to 4. And then the fence right here would be located back here. The gate, sorry, the gate would be located back there. That's what Mike is trying to explain.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of the guts of it. The execution, the detail could be very interesting, I think.
One of the keys has got to be, and I think we brought this up many times, is kind of the meandering nature of what we see as this wall. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that Mr. Reiner, is that Paul? It said that you can't pick that up on the drawings. You can't pick up the historic nature, but that is one of the things that all of the angles look so sharp to me. And when you look at the Shades house, at least it's rounded. It's you know, it's lumpy and rounded. And that's that beautiful piece of the, what you're calling the guest house, of the guest house wall is kind of rounded and old, and we want to keep that nature of that home because it is part of what attracted you originally to this house. Mm-hmm. And so trying to help make that as part of it instead of fixing it and making it look fresh and new.
I'd like to ask a question about the wrought iron. When you say wrought iron, what are you talking about? Are you talking about? Like, I'll give you an example. My pool fence is made of twisted rebar. So that's rusticated. And it looks like, and it's brown and it floats right into the trees. You don't see it. So what kind of wrought iron were you thinking about? Because I saw something about black pickets or something, and they weren't showing us. Was that the black pickets that you showed previously?
Yeah, they're steel. And they've been blackened, or you use gun bluing to make them black.
Was that a suggestion from the architecture?
I'm sorry?
Was that a suggestion from the architecture itself, or the other like Santa Fe details on the house?
I mean, there are black elements on the house that are steel, but the only fence that I'm aware of around here is this little gate right in front of the front house, which is not black.
I appreciate this suggestion. I think you are so solution driven. I really appreciate that. I'm having a really hard time imagining the wrought iron fence that would be, and what that wrought iron would look like, because now remember, it has to fit, it can't fit a baby's head through the gate.
Well, wrought iron.
Do you know, I mean, so I don't know what.
That's an easy.
That's an easy one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the comments like made previously was these picket or the rebar fences, and I sent Jill some pictures of rebar fences where there's intermittent walls and fences and walls and fences, and they're not it's not long stretches of rebar fence. It's really, it's broken up and it meanders and, you know, there's a lot you can do with it. But what Mike's comment was, you need modern appeal. So that's kind of the style. I mean, it really does. And you can plant around them. I mean, it's not.
I had a question for Jill. I guess I wasn't understanding why the problem with just doing a pool barrier in the backyard, about how that was interacting with the building windows. I don't know why that would be necessary. The enclosure would run all the way up to the wall. You wouldn't have to run it in front of the windows like that. I was confused about that rendering.
I'm not sure if I understand. So one of the suggestions that has been done, so you'll see the pool is in the kind of like middle east section, number 13 right here. And people have suggested to put like a fence around the pool just within that area. That would block the view of this back house, the view from the front house. So there's a lot going on over there, and there's this really beautiful openness over there that kind of connects like the pool to the patio. You see like this back house, you see, you know, the nicho. So to put a fence directly around the pool, I feel like wouldn't do the property justice of some of the most beautiful elements of the interior of the property.
I think that comment really resonates back to the tension between what the neighbors are looking at versus what you're looking at. I think that there could be resolvable options for getting a minimalist pool fence to get your pool filled within your backyard, without worrying about putting up a giant estate wall, to try make this property into it's changing the character of the property fundamentally.
Well, respectfully, I, have spent a lot of time at this property. I disagree. I think that putting a fence directly around the pool, regardless of how minimalistic it would be, it would still be obvious. And contained looking. We really want the openness and expanse within our yard. Once again, I do, there are several walls within the neighborhood that I actually think are very, very beautiful and characteristic. I think I would be open and willing to work with an idea that, was potentially like 4 feet, with not necessarily the way that it's set up here on this picture, where like the iron would be like set back away from the wall, but to where maybe it was like on top of the wall or directly behind it. That could be an option. If we're not willing to accept a 5-foot wall in the front.
Colleen's second asked a comment.
Oh,
you want to go ahead and show that, and then we'll ask Colleen.
Yeah, can you guys see this? So Mike,
it's a little blurry. Hold on, pull it back just a little bit.
Yeah, Jody, your background is blurring into it.
I don't know. There's something that's going on with it. You had it. There it is, right there.
Oh,
yeah.
There, can you see it?
So, and the wrought iron is behind it about, I don't know how many feet.
10 feet or
Maybe 10
Could
feet.
be anywhere. Right.
Well,
It could be 20 feet behind it. Could be, yeah.
Could it be on top of it? That's what Jill was just asking.
No,
No.
because then they can hop up on one, hop up.
Oh yeah, the pool issue. Oh, then it went blurry.
There it is.
I think it likes to have my face in the thing. Anyways, you get the gist. You saw the point of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely get the gist of that. I still feel like I don't know. I feel like we've made a lot of changes to provide more visibility that's currently there today, you know, regardless of when that fence is put up or whether it was approved or not. You know, it's something that I feel would be a lot more beautiful and add to the beautiful character of the neighborhood than the existing Home Depot fence that's there.
Well, I hope that wasn't the original plan. It was a Home Depot fence or something that wasn't fill the neighborhood.
Paul, did you want to bring your screen back up? I just stopped sharing so I could show the one.
No, I appreciate that. No, unless you want me to.
Did you guys want to see his screen again?
I don't feel enough to see it. I feel like we're at the same stopping point that we've been.
Well, I think let's let Colleen make her statement before we.
So Colleen wants to talk.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hi, it's Colleen and Barry here. You know, Jill, Paul, you know, we really appreciate all the effort and the work that you've put into this and still trying to make changes, you know, but it just looking at the plans and seeing the wall, it still to my eye really does not fit in with the neighborhood. But and I think our letter of June 23rd that everybody's received and read, you know, that we had sent to the Historic District Advisory Board clearly states what Barry and I, how our views and how we feel about the construction of the wall, whether it's 6 feet or 4 feet. And short of like reading our entire 2-page letter, which, you know, Jill, you did mention that you appreciated some of the things that we had said. I understand you might not have agreed with everything we had said in that letter, but you know, thank you for your comment. But we still believe the building of a wall in this historic district would detract from the character and feel of the neighborhood. And our historic district's cherished by many for its authenticity, which reflects a bygone era. And the wall would clash with those feelings, as well as with the architectural, the cultural, and environmental heritage of the historic district and the Old Fort Lowell neighborhood as a whole. And we feel the wall obstructs sight lines, would disrupt the visual flow of the neighborhood. It creates a sense of division and separation that runs counter to the open and interconnected feel that our historic district strives to maintain. We feel the wall would detract from the overall visual appearance of the historic district. And the previous similar walls that have been built around here seem to us to have these kinds of effects on our neighborhood and community. We just don't want to see another house, you know, fall victim, you know, to that kind of, you know, construction.
And I'd like to make some summary statements, 2 very short ones. It's been some people seem to think that I'm as old as the dirt, and the dirt they're referring to is the dirt that the neighborhood is built on, that I spent walking around on it barefooted for my first 18 years. Another aspect of that, of my connection with that house, is that one of my childhood friends, now deceased, was born there, and that was over 80 years ago. The lands, the dirt that people were talking about are hundreds of thousands of years old, and are abandoned floodplains. I've only been here about 75 or 80 years. My friend was born over 80 years ago in that house. So in summary, building a solid wall of almost any kind within our historic district can be expected to diminish the unique character and ambiance that makes this neighborhood so special. We ask this board to consider the impact that such a wall will likely, or such any such walls will likely have on the historical, aesthetic, communal, and environmental aspects of our historic district.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments.
Thank you.
In the interest of time, we're looking at 8:35 here, so, and we still have a couple other things to talk about, and we have minutes to approve. What's the feeling of this board about how to move forward? And Jill, I guess the question is really to you about, are you asking us to approve the plan? We have not reviewed the plan that you delivered today, except to discuss it now as kind of a courtesy. So we would be reviewing the plan that was delivered to us for review, the one from July. And if you're asking us to approve or deny that, then we can move on that. Or if you're saying that you would consider a different design, then we could continue it, I guess. I don't know what else to do.
Would you be willing to hold a special meeting?
We would be willing to hold a special meeting.
Jill, a special meeting means that you wouldn't have to wait till the 4th Thursday of the month, that they would find another date for a quorum. That would be before that.
I don't really know what to say.
I think we've been trying to work together. I mean, we talked last weekend. We can continue to work together and move this to some other, move it to another resolution. But I think we all feel really strongly that we don't want to see more than a 4-foot wall, and we don't want to. We cannot obscure the visibility of the back house because it's gonna, delist it basically. It's gonna make it.
All due respect, it's not currently listed. It is not listed.
No, it is not listed on the National Register. The front house is. The rear house is still a contributing structure in the Fort Lowell Historic Zone, and it's eligible. Even Shippo said it's eligible to be listed.
So, Jill, I just to bring a different perspective. There's only 30 properties in Old Fort Lowell that are part of this zone, that are historic contributing properties, and you happen to be the owner of one of them. There's two. Yeah, there's tens of thousands of homes in Tucson, and you are the steward of a home in one of these very special overlay zones, of which there are very few geographical spots in Tucson or in the country that have these kinds of protections that drew you to the house. I heard you say in your letter, the openness of the neighborhood is why we love this house. And then you use the word enclose. You want to enclose it. And you are the steward of this, of what is like basically a sacred opportunity to be stewarding these historic contributing structures that really are like the fabric of what make Old Fort Lowell or Old Fort Lowell. And there's only 30 of them. And so just to try and say where this board is coming from.
Sorry, go ahead.
If 5 of those houses put up walls, that would be a 6th of the properties. And it will be very hard for us to have a foot to stand on to stop that from happening if we allow them to go. And the examples just aren't lining up with the history of how this board acts and how this preservation zone is holding this space.
I definitely understand the gravity of owning a historic home in this nature. I do, like, I understand where you guys are coming from. I also feel like the empathy level from the owner's perspective is just not there either. From a privacy and security standpoint, when you look from the north side of the property and look straight back to the French doors that were put in at some point, that's directly into my bedroom. And I can see people going to in front there. People walk up to our property all the time, even if it is private property. The livability of like that's our only yard. I think pretty much everybody here on this call like does have some private backyard. We don't. I'm even open, like honestly, like I just want to like be able to move forward with this. I'm willing to do 4 foot in the front if that's what's going to move forward. I do want it to be a wall, something solid, 4 foot in the front, and then some kind of construction behind it to where it's you know, iron and you know, it applies to the pool code. I'm open to that, and I don't think that that's asking more of other properties that already exist, that are historic in this neighborhood, that do have taller walls. So I'm open to that, but if I'm open to that though, I want to make sure that if we continue to go back to the drawing board and we present something new to you guys, that we have a pretty sure understanding that's something that can move forward. Like I said, this has been 10 months. We are exhausted. And
well, we saw it once in February. So it's not, I'm sorry that it's taken such an extended period of time, but this is only our second consideration of this project as a board.
And we've been doing our best to follow what we've been told to do. We're not trying to go rogue here. Like Paul and I are having a hard time understanding the process and the guidelines too, from what we hear from different people. So.
Okay, well, so but you need to tell us which way you want to go. Do you want us to vote on this tonight, or do you want to try to continue it and redesign? We can hold a meeting as soon as we can get a special meeting together.
I mean, so let's talk about that. When do you, since you're all here, when do you think that you have time available again that you could meet?
If I have business trips to take.
So let's go around. Could we meet next Tuesday? Daryl, are you still there? Could you meet next Tuesday?
So that would be October 3rd?
Depends on the time. I could meet in the evening.
I think that with David and Chris's schedule, it has to be an evening meeting.
And mine too.
And yeah,
I'm out of town except for the 7th through the 16th.
Could you Zoom on the 3rd?
No, not. I will be off grid. I'm going to the wilderness.
We'd still have a quorum with -1.
Yeah.
If we don't, we're not there. Well.
David, can you meet on the 3rd?
I believe so.
Okay.
It's a
Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so what time would you be looking at? 7? Jill, Paul, can you change your plans so that you can, if you go this direction, October 3rd, which is a Tuesday at 7 p.m. And then I can get you on the PRS agenda October 12th.
And the 3rd doesn't work, with the 10th work.
No, I'm not trying to
I'm available those times. I can do it.
And does that give you enough time to sketch out a new plan or elevation?
I think so. I mean, yes, physically I can draw. I can make it happen in that time.
And Jill, it's just your decision.
Yeah, I mean, timing is fine. That's not necessarily a concern. To confirm with you, Jody, I have two things I want to confirm. To confirm with you, Jody, that would probably, we wouldn't have the 1 o'clock meeting this Thursday, correct?
Correct.
So the other thing I want to confirm is when I was trying to explain through my frustration, if we draw this and we draw something with a 4-foot wall in the front, do we feel strongly that this is something, you know?
So this isn't another bring your offense, you're saying? Yeah.
Well, as we've been discussing, the concerns that we have primarily are about not obscuring the visibility to the rear house. So if you can do that with a 4-foot wall and some kind of a fence behind it, then I think that meets the requirements. And then Mary Lou is also feels strongly that it needs to be open enough on the sides and meandering to allow some wild character, lumpiness, and Colleen Berry are concerned about wildlife and vegetation. I mean, if you think along those lines, you could do some fantastic things with that property. And you could and it gives you your privacy.
Yeah, I just said my comment would be that the 4-foot wall is what's required, and I think we're going to be looking to see that. The pool enclosure is entirely up to you. That's none of our business. This suggestion that I made was one solution, but not the one you need to do. Just the criteria is a 4-foot wall across the front, and if you're going to enclose the pool, that 5-foot requirement is something you need to figure out, on the rest of the property and back there. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not suggesting we need to do this, but there are lots of solutions. There are lots of solutions to it.
There's lots of creativity. So is that, are you agreeing with continuing to next week?
Me?
Yes.
Jill, sorry. I'm looking at you on the wall.
Yeah, we can't see us. You're like we're
I mean, I guess I don't know if I have a choice. So, yeah.
Okay. Did someone make a motion to that effect?
I'm sorry.
I move we continue the discussion for 1 week.
Okay. So can I?
Oh yeah, you can have it.
Well,
Can we get a second?
Second.
Thank you, David.
So Belle said, continue the discussion till next week. I'd like to modify that to say that we will review another design next week. We will be prepared to review and vote on a new design next week.
What will we get it the same day? Will we get it? It
has to be reviewed. I mean, city's got to look at it before we get it.
Okay.
Yeah, so Paul, you're going to need to submit that ASAP. Because I'm going to basically turn around another agenda and get the materials out to them.
Okay, so that's the modified motion. Do you agree with the modified motion, Mr. Schnecker?
Mr. Bells.
And the second, do you agree?
Yes.
So it's modified motion. Can we vote on it? Everybody says aye.
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 Thank you. Thank you. 7.
Yeah, I said aye.
Okay. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
See you next week. Okay, let's move on. We get up there. There's going to be easier cases coming down the road than what we've been doing. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the agenda and talk about the approval of the minutes from August 22nd and September 7th. The August 22nd one was for the 5301 property. Were there any comments or corrections on that?
I didn't review them. I am so sorry. And I would really like to before we approve them. Are they needed
They're
for something?
needed for Thursday, yes.
They're needed for Thursday. Did everybody else read them?
I reviewed them.
I did.
They seem to be pretty consistent with what we said.
So please move to approve them.
Carol, I think.
Carol, did you also read them?
I did.
Did you have any changes?
We're talking about
August 22nd. Minutes.
that Elaine has sent around.
Sorry?
They're talking about the August 22nd meeting where you reviewed 5301 East Fort Lowell. Did you have any corrections to that? The minutes?
And that was the one that Elaine had shared with us?
Yes.
Well, so there were 2 minutes. One is August 22nd, where we talked about the school, the teacher's house. And I don't think there's any. I didn't have any corrections to them. I don't think anybody else.
September 7th.
Okay. Yeah, so August 22nd. So Mike made a motion to approve those. Can somebody second that?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay. And
do you want to vote on that?
Yes. Can we vote on it?
Aye.
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 Okay, and then the meeting minutes of September 7th were the minutes for the appeal to consider the appeal on the case at 5259 East Fort Lowell. And I sent them out and asked you to look at your comments. Do you want to change any of your comments? Or do you want to change anything in those minutes?
As I thought about those, as I saw them, I made a comment which was duly and accurately recorded, but I'm not sure it's really appropriate for the discussion. And that was, I made the comment about something to the effect that, what was it? That I felt that the individual who had engaged with us over the past year. How did I put that?
Contentious or something.
Something like that, and I'm not sure that that's necessarily germane to
good call
to the consideration.
Disagreed with the preceding comments. He expressed that the structure does not fit. Additionally, he was frustrated by the cavalier attitude.
Maybe, which I don't think is untrue, but I'm just not sure I would want that down in the public record. If it's fair to expunge something like that, I don't know, or paraphrase it slightly differently. Okay, I think just frustrated.
Just take the phrase out.
Just take it out, I guess. Just frustrated by, if it's possible. I don't have it in front of me. No, I think just frustrated by.
Frustrated.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you could wordsmith that out.
Which became increasingly upsetting to each meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. There were some other changes that were added in. And did anyone look at their own comments? So,
yeah, I looked at them, but I don't think it's fair to instruct me in remembering myself.
It's like they're reading.
No, that's all right.
Okay. I think the rest of it, the only other real correction is that the meeting adjourned at 6:14, not 9:29. That would have been more.
And I'd just like to point out a typo in the paragraph. It's written as the decision letter, and it should be the director's decision letter.
That's on in number. It's under Maywood. And it should be director's decision. Okay.
Can you tell me again the time that it ended? I missed
6:14.
6:15. Thank you.
We'll put an active recorder in order to just keep thinking about that the thing that's set for our guideline over and over again is the rural nature of Fort Lowell. You can't have a rural nature to put up modern walls.
Agreed.
It's the openness, one property to another, that creates that open rural feel.
Okay, so I want to move on. Item number 3 is a review of process.
Wait.
Sorry.
Do you need to get a motion for the 7th?
Yeah, we need to get a motion for the 7th. Special meeting.
Move to approve the minutes for the 7th.
I'll second.
With the corrections.
Yeah, with
With corrections.
I'll second.
Okay.
Especially Carol's.
And let's vote.
Aye.
All right, so moving on to review process discussion. And this is something that you added to the agenda.
We summarized because you had some items like the undergrounding that you wanted to talk about, and at Post Traders. And then you wanted to talk about, and you kind of already did, the background on how you do the review and stuff like that. So we kind of put it into one spot.
Okay.
But whether or not, I mean, you kind of already did a little bit of it for Jill Heater's item. So it's up to you. And if you want to talk about the undergrounding.
Well, I just wanted when I wanted that added to the agenda, it was just that people were asking me what's going on at 5425 at the Post Trader store. What's that trenching?
Underground electric.
Underground electric is where it is. So electric. So it's not that there's no project involved that we have to review, basically.
Not yet.
Right. Well, I mean, for him to put his electric underground is not a historic issue. And then the other items that I want to talk about are several policy documents, and I think I need to get some advice, maybe from you, maybe from the city attorney, about how to change our standards so they're specific, and we don't go through this kind of exercise again. Because even though the code says may be reviewed, we decided to review it. We did review it.
One thing that I thought was nice is that Armory Park does have more specifics about some of the nitty gritties in their own little bust out, and Fort Lowell's I noticed is very condensed.
Yeah.
So just I think looking to the other districts is going to be the first resource.
Yeah. And I'd like some volunteer help with that. I mean, about first of all, to clarify exactly what we have to do to change those standards, if we can just change them. If we can, what do we have to do? Is it just an administrative change to revise the Fort Lowell standards to be more specific?
No, it goes through a review. So West University is actually the first one. Because everybody kind of had the really short ones. And then several years ago, West University updated theirs. So I would actually point you to West University to look at, they did get into the nitty gritty, as you say. Armory Park is still in the process of updating theirs, and Barrio Historico is in the process of updating theirs, and they pretty much both kind of use the standard of West University to look at. So they looked at like all kinds of stuff, the type of windows that are appropriate, the type of fencing that's appropriate, roofing material that's appropriate, and all of that.
And yeah, it sounds like just kind of getting more of those guidelines into the formally into the technical standards.
It's explained to someone who's
and it's
not an architect.
And it's in the code. I mean, the design guidelines are just suggestive, but
well, they are in the standard. Right?
They
So,
are?
yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
But
So like the
it's not
pamphlet?
specific, like, yeah, it's not specific.
So-
And that's a matter, again, this goes back to education of the board about what is the standard, what is the code, is what are we actually reviewing?
So it's how you want to set it up. So if you want to have a committee, you just, if you have a quorum, then we have to notice it. So you always want to be mindful of your quorum. If you do it with less than quorum, then you guys can meet, like if there's a committee of 3 of you, because now there's 7 of you,
Right.
that wants to start it initially working on it, and then you can bring it to the board and then kind of start to review everything like that. It's not a, it's, I mean, if you look at West University and you look at the work that Armory Park did, it's not a short and sweet thing. It's taking them a while to do it. West University opted to, they occasionally also update theirs too. So they do it in meetings, and they just take a chunk of time in the meeting and they have it up on the screen and they go through, you know, and make comments and have a discussion about it. So what I would suggest is probably starting with a smaller committee and really taking a look at it globally, and you know, figuring out where you want to go and looking at West Universities, just to see how they've set theirs up too, and then going from there.
Because I think there are things that we specifically would address. And Paul Height is obviously one. Development zone was another, and then this whole question about comparing non-contributing properties to, or non-historic properties to historic properties. Yes. Because it's confusing every time.
And maybe, Elaine, what we do is we pick one section and get it fixed and submit that and just do. I mean, this wall height has killed us. Has killed us, and it would be so nice to get walls taken care of.
Achievable chunks.
You know, and it just goes back to the question about building zone and parapet heights.
But you know, we could start with one small piece. Yeah, I'm not saying we don't do it all. No, but let's get it, and it might save one.
Pick one.
Pick one.
Walls comes to mind.
Or let's see.
Yeah, watch will never get another wall case.
I mean, we're not.
Also,
and the other thing, I'm sorry, the other thing that Chris brought up to me after meeting is there is no entrance criteria to a review. Like, he's an engineer. If he goes into a review, he's got a piece of paper where somebody says, here's what I've done, I'm ready for review. And you check off what you've done to prove that you're ready for review. And then there's an exit criteria for review too. So
and also, not to be the new board member who's saying we need to meet every month, but I'm feeling that there's an administrative list of things above and beyond the reviews, and that we would benefit from a non-reviewing meeting to.
Jody, you're muted.
But just taking advantage of the monthly opportunity to do other points of order and business.
I agree. Anything else on that? I mean, is everybody kind of on board with?
Well, let me
if I
just
ask you to help.
question. If we have an administrative meeting, does it have to be attended by the city?
If you have a quorum, it does. You are appointed by the city, mayor and council. So it's,
why do we have to pay $1,000 for?
Because we didn't do our job.
If we're an appointed board by the city, why do we have to pay $1,000?
We're gonna ask for that to be done.
I'm just curious.
Anyway.
Oh, are you talking about the appeal? Sorry, I'm switching over to my phone because my battery is dying.
Future agenda items, we just talked about that a bit. So is there anything else that anybody wants to add? They may offer to do some education.
Recording in progress.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.